Thank you and welcome to the committee meetings for the St. Charles Parish Public School Board. We appreciate members of our community who continue to stay engaged and ask questions and take an active interest in our school system. We sincerely value the time, the passion, the commitment so many of you bring to these important conversations. As we move through the committee meetings tonight, we want to provide clarity on how our committee meetings are intended to function. Committee meetings are the working sessions for board members. These meetings are designed to allow board members to receive presentations, review detailed information, ask questions, discuss options, and better understand the items that may later come before the full board for action. No final vote occurs during committee meetings. Their purpose is to ensure board members have the opportunity to fully engage with the information before making decisions. Because of this structure, committee meetings are for board member discussion and engagement. We also want to ensure the public has meaningful opportunities to be heard during this process. The proposed interim budget draft, which will be presented during the Finance and Audit Committee meetings tonight, once that budget is formally presented, it will be available for public viewing 15 days prior to board consideration, allowing time for review and thoughtful feedback. Community members are invited and encouraged to share their thoughts during the public comment portion of the special board meeting, which will be scheduled to act on the budget. That date will be announced in advance, and comments related to agenda items are welcome. Additionally, at any time during this process, community members are encouraged to contact their elected board representative directly to ask questions, to share concerns, or provide feedback. Thank you for your continued partnership and commitment to the students, families, educators, and the future of our school system.
Mr. President, out of respect for the time of any community members who are present this evening, and because the executive session may be lengthy and is closed to the public pursuant to Louisiana Revised Statute 42:1617, for the purposes of discussing the legal matters identified under Agenda Item 1A, I move that we amend the order of the agenda to take up executive session immediately after Item 4 and before Item 5. This would allow the board to complete the remaining public-facing portion of the meeting without an unnecessary delay before entering into the closed session.
I'll second.
There's a motion by Mr. Gregson and a second by Ms. Boudreau. Is there any discussion, Mr. Chairman of that committee? Is there any feedback on that? Okay, so we're going to move the executive session to the end of the agenda, and we'll kick off risk management. That's what the motion is for. All right.
So I'll go ahead and call the Risk Management Insurance Committee to order, and we'll go to 1B, which is the Student Accident Insurance Broker. I'll call Ms. Darnisha Gray up, and also a representative from Gallagher.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am here today to present the Student Accident Insurance Broker renewal. So we just completed a request for qualifications for a student accident broker. Per the board's insurance cycles, we complete the review of our brokers on a 3-year cycle. The 3-year cycle just came up. We had a committee that stood on the student accident review, and after that, the score sheets that are in the board docs show that Gallagher was recommended to continue to be the broker. So I have Mr. Charlie here from Gallagher who can answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you all for the opportunity to continue to partner with you.
Any other questions? If none, we'll just move this to the board table for Wednesday night. So thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is 1C, which is the Travaris Quarterly Pharmacy Report. And I'll turn it back over to Ms. Gray.
Thank you again. This agenda item is to present the quarterly pharmacy analytics report. So as the board may know, the board has contracted with a pharmacy analytics broker to review our pharmacy benefits. I do have representatives here from USI, who is our health insurance brokers. We are also pulling up the board I think she's getting it right now. We're having a presentation virtually because they are not here in Louisiana, so that Traveris may present, and also that this was a board member's request that we make sure we have this company to present. So we are trying to get them up on the stream right now, and I'll let USI say any words before they start if you have anything to add.
I'll just do a quick introduction to Traveris before they get in. I know they're going to introduce themselves, but we used Traveris for a number of years now. I think we began partnering with Traveris around a year or two before we went self-funded. We worked with Traveris to do some procurement estimates on pharmacy benefit managers to get an estimation on what our costs would be before we moved self-funded. And then when we transitioned to a full self-funded arrangement, we used and incorporated Traveris as our analytics oversight to our pharmacy benefit manager, which currently OptumRx. Before it was with Humana, we use Humana's PBM. But again, and just to kind of say exactly, they help validate contract performance, monitor trends, identify risk, and provide strategic consulting recommendations. So, essentially, instead of our pharmacy benefit manager, again, OptumRx, relying on them on contract performance, Traveris has helped us with that oversight, kind of the fox watching the henhouse kind of scenario. So I'm going to turn it over to Traveris, let him introduce himself and talk a little bit about what they've been doing, and go through our Clearwater report.
Hi. So my name is Jessie Smith, and I am the customer success manager for St. Charles Parish with Traveris. And we have a presentation today on your second quarter. Hi, can y'all hear me? Is that better? Speak loud.
Jessica, try again, please. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Is that better?
Is that okay for you?
Just go ahead.
Okay, I can talk louder if needed. My name is Jessie Smith, and I'm the customer success manager for St. Charles with Traveris. We do have a presentation for your Q2 reports. We're only allotted 20 minutes. Usually this takes about an hour, so I'm going to just jump right into it. I'm going to share my, let me know when y'all can see this. Can you see that?
Yes, we have.
Okay, great. So on the call today with me, we have Ashley Alnwick, who is the analyst, and Brooke Henry, who is our clinical director assigned to St. Charles. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into it and hand it over to Ashley.
Okay, it's nice to see all of you today. So we'll be looking at the Q2 report for St. Charles Parish. So this report covers data from 5/1/2025 through 10/31/2025. So the first half of the plan year. So as we're going through, I won't be able to see you guys as well. So if you have any questions, please just feel free to let me know and we can answer them as we're going through. So we're starting off here with our executive summary. It's a high-level overview of the plan's performance through these first 2 quarters of data. What's great about our ClearGuards is that they are color-coded, so the colors will stay consistent throughout the rest of the report. with yellow representing guarantees, pink represents pricing variances, blue is claim volume and utilization, green represents financials, purple rebates, and so forth. So we'll be diving into all of these metrics in more detail in subsequent slides. But are there any questions that we wanted to start off with?
No.
Okay. The next slide here, we have our key performance indicators. So through these first 6 months of the plan year, we saw just over 26,000 claims that were filled, and these were put in by just under about 2,900 unique utilizers. And then the total spend for these claims was just over about 6.2 million. So if we're looking year over year, the claim volume and the number of utilizers that were filling claims stayed consistent. And we did just see an increase in the spend. So if we were looking at Q2 of the previous plan year, the spend was about 5.6 million. And now we're seeing it at about 6.2. So we did see a year over year increase, which is most common across all of our clients in our book of business. We're seeing year over year increases because of drug prices rising there. And then in the bottom left on this page, those red boxes represent everything specialty. So we can see just about 1.3% of the claims that came through were considered to be specialty claims. And even though it's a small percentage of the overall claim volume, because specialty claims are typically a lot more expensive, they do make up a larger percentage of the overall spend. So we can see specialty spend was just about 46%. And this is perfectly within our average. So we give between 41 to 55% is where we'd like to see specialty spend. So specialty is looking really well controlled through Q2 of this plan year. And then on the right-hand side, we can see different metrics and how they trended quarter over quarter. So for claims paid, we can see a slight increase going into Q2 there, which is common across our book of business as we're getting into those winter months and vaccine utilization is starting to increase, as well as antibiotics are increasing as kids are going back to school, et cetera. And then about halfway down is the generic dispensing rate, also known as the GDR. So this averaged out just to be about 90% through Q2. And this is great. We typically like to see it in the high 80s, low 90s there. So it's tracking well. Any questions on any key performance indicators? Okay. And then this next slide is our pricing variance page. So what we do is we get all of the claims data from Optum UMR, and then we re-adjudicate 100% of the claims that come through. And if we find that a claim has been priced higher than we think it should have been priced contractually, it would populate here as a pricing variance. So it's great to see a 0 on this page. It means that we haven't flagged any claims to be variances through Q2 of the plan year. Any questions on that at all? And then here we have our pricing guarantee breakout. So through Q2, we've calculated there to be a total guarantee shortfall or an underperformance on the guarantees by just about 199,000. So on the left-hand side, those tables there break down how we're calculating that total guarantee shortfall. So AWP is the average wholesale price. So in the contract with Optum UMR, they've put in certain guarantees off of the average wholesale price for the different categories. So for example, if we're looking at retail generic 30, UMR has said that at an aggregate level, these claims should be getting an 86.25% discount off of the average wholesale price. And now in actuality, it's averaged out to be more of a 78.5% discount. So it put that specific category into a shortfall of 135.3 thousand. And then we do the same calculations for the other categories. And this contract has what we call full offsetting in place. So it means that if there's any sort of overperformance in a category, like we're seeing for the retail brand 30, UMR can actually use that overperformance to help offset some of the underperformance there. So we're summing up all of the categories' performances, and that's how we're getting that 199,000. And this is just through Q2, so it's a snapshot in time. And this performance will continue to fluctuate through Q3 and Q4. So it'll be that end of year performance number that is going to be reconciled. Any questions on pricing guarantees?
Could you tell us, is this good or bad?
Yeah, great question. So right now, I would say we don't like to see an underperformance because it means that they put discounts into the contract. They're contractually obligated to hit those discounts, and right now they're not. So ideally, going into Q3 and Q4, hopefully they'll start to kind of right the ship, and that underperformance will slowly start to be, come out a little bit more net even. But it's really going to be the Q4 number that's going to be the most important, because right now there's nothing to be reconciled. Does that help answer the question?
A little bit, but so you're saying you want to see the ship righted Q3 and Q4, but this time frame is last year.
Yes. So the plan year will be 5/1/2025 through the end of April of 2026. And so since these discount guarantees are aggregates, they don't have to hit the discount on every single claim. They just have to hit it at an aggregate level for the different categories. So once we have the next 6 months of data and we can see how UMR actually performed in those 6 months, we can see that how an aggregate, how the performance was for the entire plan year. So right now it's a snapshot in time and not anything that's actually going to be reconciled.
Right, you keep saying a snapshot in time, so is it industry standard for us to get lag data 7 months after?
So basically what we do is we produce reports, and Jesse, correct me if I'm wrong, a certain amount of time once the quarter closes. So I'm not sure about the Q3 or the Q4 reports. Jesse, I don't know if you know the status of those.
What I can say is that we did a Q1 and a Q2, and this was actually sent out a while ago. I think we tried to actually meet to go over it before. But we don't have the final Q4 because it just ended. So we don't have that information yet for that. But as soon as that's available, we can send that out.
Okay, so this is standard, because we're seeing this shortfall. You're saying it's going to correct, but yet you can't tell us if it corrected.
Correct, because we haven't run that Q4 report. So we don't know how the last 6 months of the data performed.
Right, but what about Q3?
The plan only gets three reports a year.
Only gets 3 reports with 4 quarters.
Yes.
So it'll be a Q1 report. That would be the first 3 months. And then we're looking at Q2, which is the first 6 months. And then when we produce the Q4 report, it'll be the full year of data. So, but there's just no Q3 report that is produced for the group.
Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that? Is that a industry thing, or is that just a Traverse thing? As far as the Q3 or not Q3 report, but have a Q4?
Jesse, do you want to answer to that?
I don't, forgive my ignorance on it,
I really couldn't hear. I'm sorry. Could you say
so
that one
the
more
fact that
time?
we don't have a Q3, that you guys don't produce a Q3, so we produce a Q1, a Q2, and a Q4. Is that?
In the contract, when we sign it, there is, this would actually, some of ours get 2 reports. For yours, we actually do 3. So depending on what is in what plan they're signed up for determines the amount of reports that they get.
Okay, thank you.
So Q4 is going to be May 1st, 2025 to May 1st of 2026. No? You said the whole year? No?
It's the full year, would be
It's the full-
Q4, correct. So it would be through the end of April of 2026.
Okay, so that would be right at May 1st. Yeah. Thank you.
And just as a point of reference, we got our reconciliation check from Optum, I believe in November of '25. So it takes that long to close the books out. And that 25 was for the 24 plan year. So we would expect a reconciliation check, if any, from Optum around the same time frame and around the Q4 of '26.
But as of right now, it doesn't look like there will be one, or we're
Right now, it's
saying.
200,000. It was 300,000 last year. So they're saying through the fourth.
But there's still a third and a fourth quarter to
That's
come.
correct, correct. Could go
Okay.
fluctuate from there depending on.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And then this next slide is our rebate breakout. So through these first 6 months of the year, we saw that there were just about 1,500 claims that came through that were eligible for rebates. And this is 6% of the total claim volume. So the range that we give for our book of business average would be between 7 to 11% is where we would like to see that. So we are slightly low. And then if we're looking at the total minimum rebates, we've calculated them to be just over about 1.7 million. And to put that into some perspective, on the left-hand side, we can see expected minimum rebates to total spend ratio. So we can see that rebates currently are making up just under 29% of the total spend. And this is tracking very well. We typically like to see it between 10 to 34% for rebates to total spend. So tracking well there. And on the right-hand side, those tables detail out how we're calculating the total minimum rebates of 1.7 million. So the top table there lists out the quarterly counts of how many claims are eligible for the different categories. And then the bottom table, the minimum rebate amounts, those minimum rebate amount per claim, those are pulled directly from the UMR contract. So for example, we can see that so far through Q2, there were 40 male brand claims that came through that were eligible for rebates. And then we would multiply that by the minimum amount that UMR has listed in the contract of that $1,063. And we multiply that by 40 eligible claims. We can see that the male brand total through Q2 is just over about 42.5 thousand. And then we sum up the other categories, and that's how we're calculating the total minimum through the end of Q2. Any questions on rebates at all?
With regards to the rebate eligible claims, and this may be a question for you guys, is there you said that needs to be between 7 and 11%. We're sitting at 6. Did I hear that correctly?
Correct.
Are there any levers that we can do mid-year to correct that number into the advisable range?
Well, we're under all of this is based on the contract. So the contract we signed, which is a 3-year contract, and we're in our 3rd year with Optum, there's guarantees in there. There's rebate guarantees and there's pricing guarantees. So what Traveris does is monitor the contract, audit it, so to speak. And at the end of the year, if there's a shortfall, then we'll get something back. Since we're in a 3-year contract with Optum, we cannot change our benefits or our formulary or anything like that. But since the contract's up next year, toward the end of this year, we'll do a full-fledged marketing of our pharmacy contract for our next year's contract. And we
Does
use this
Traveris help with
data
that?
to help us to
Okay, that was my question.
put our RFQ together. Yes.
The data helps, not the firm.
Both.
Okay,
Both procurement, but going forward, it'd be a different vendor.
okay.
Okay. And then the next slide here is our specialty and non-specialty financials page. So we can see specialty spend, just about 2.82 million. Non-specialty, just about 3.38 million. And then the financial key performance indicators really just illustrates, again, it's a small percentage of the overall claim volume that's coming through that's categorized as specialty. But because they're more expensive medications, they're a larger percentage of the spend. And again, we can see specialties making up just about 46% of the total spend, which is very well controlled. It's under that range of, the top of the range there would be about 55%. So it's nice to see it down in the mid 40s there, because this can be a huge pain point for a lot of groups. Any questions on specialty and non-specialty financials at all? I will pass it over to Brooke.
Thanks, Ashley. Hi, I'm Brooke. I'm the clinical director here at Traveris, and I'd like to take a look just at your clinical insights with you very quickly here. These are your top 5 therapeutic classes for the time period Ashley was referring to. Starting off with skin conditions, really looking at these, specialty drugs are your primary driver, things like Skyrizi, Dupixent. And there are several generics and creams also included in this category. That's why we see so many utilizers. The majority of the utilizers are using those lower cost products. But you can see there was just a slight increase in spend for that category. Number 2 is your anti-diabetic medications. Your top 2 medications here are GLP-1s, so your Mounjaro and really it's about 1.1 million in spend, which was about 17% of your total spend for the time period here. Next up, we have some inflammatory conditions. Again, it's specialty drugs are your primary driver, with people starting on Tremfya, Rinvoq, Simponi, Cimzia, medications like that to control those inflammatory conditions. You'll notice number 4, migraine, had a large increase in spend here, about 97%. Really, these, again, is specialty drugs that are the main driver. We used to see in this category multiple generic medications. Members would start on those first, and that was really the only option. But now we have these new specialty medications that are available to help get better control and prevention of migraines. And then lastly here, we have oncology, a little bit of decrease in spend, but the same story that it's the specialty drugs that are the main driver. These oncology medications are typically continued until either they are no longer effective or until the member can no longer tolerate side effects. Any questions I can answer for you? No? Okay. In the interest of time, we're going to skip forward a little bit and take a look at biosimilars. So you can see here we have Humira on the left. It is in the dark bar for Q1, Q2. We see a lot of utilization. In Q1 of 2025, we can see that utilization has dropped, and we start to see the biosimilar claims appear. By Q2 of 2025, your utilization has switched, and really it's the biosimilars that have taken over. We don't really see any more of those Humira claims. Okay. Starting to see that similar pattern for Stelara on the right, where we started out with a significant number of Stelara claims. Now at the end of the quarters here, we have really just that biosimilar showing up. Any questions I can answer for you on biosimilars? Okay, next up we have our anti-diabetic GLP-1 medications. So these are Mounjaro and Ozempic. There's also a handful of other anti-diabetic GLP-1s that fall into this category, things like Victoza, Trulicity, Rybelsus. We can see large growth in these, especially in Mounjaro. In 2024, average quarter-over-quarter growth was about 43%. And we can see it's slowed down in 2025, but really that spend is still there. So the trend is still increasing. Ozempic, the trend is a little flatter here, really with members moving to Mounjaro. Mounjaro has a dual mechanism of action, which makes it more popular for members. So we see a lot of members switching from the Ozempic to the Mounjaro. Questions I can answer for you on your anti-diabetic GLP-1s? Okay. If none,
I think we're at time. So I wanted to be, just give you a couple of minutes if you had any questions about the presentation. Also, this presentation, we sent it earlier, so there's a lot of other clinical data that we didn't have time to go over, but please feel free to take a look at that. There's some really good information in there. So I'll go ahead and open it up to questions, any questions that y'all have.
Do you have all of the history, or you just have what we have so far? Like you don't have years back what we have previously done, or you just have current data?
Are you talking with the
I mean, like
reporting?
current as in the last year. I'm talking about 5 years of this.
We have information as far as, I think it was, y'all started in 2022, is that, yeah, 22, because we did it. We have the ClearGuard reporting for that information.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, that's helpful. Is there any history of variances historically?
We did not pull that information. I could take that as a follow-up. You're saying say that one more time so
Well,
I
you
can
said the
make sure.
sheet up at the top that there was no variances and that that was a good thing. I'm just wondering if there's ever been a history of variances.
I can follow up on that and let you
Okay,
know. I do not
thank you.
believe there were, but I can check on that.
Thank you. That's my only question.
Any other questions?
I think you answered it earlier. If we can, when you get the data for the final report through April 30th of 2026, is that possible to send that to either USI or Ms. Gray or both, whatever?
We'll send the report out. Yes, sir.
All right, that'd be helpful. Thank you.
No other questions?
Yes, and just to make sure that I can follow up for the board, the information that you referenced about the quarter 1, 2, 3, 4 report, you said that were in a contract. Can you advise if you mean in a contract as far as Optum, or are you referring to a contract that's supposed to be specified with us about only providing 3 reports?
Are you talking about our reports? We have a contract. Okay, when y'all signed up with Truveris, that's what was included in the plan, the 3 reports.
Okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate the report. Any other questions from any board members? If none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the risk management insurance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A second.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Personnel and Policy Committee will come to order. We have 2 items on the agenda. The first one is a review of the personnel items. Ms. Teresa Brown.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Okay, so you have the personnel notes that are attached, and I will answer any questions that you have regarding that I can answer. You also see that there is a staffing update, which is an item that we do through the month of June to the board, and so I'm happy to report that. Just to tell you where we are right now, there are 30 resignations and retirements. That has actually changed in the last couple of days because, you know, this is evolving. So we may be a little ahead of that. And then we had 11 job fair hires from our most recent job fair. And then we currently have 15 vacancies right now that we are working on. So that is our staffing update as we see. Any questions that I can answer?
The recap, or I guess we call it recap. So February to May, 25, 26, 25, that's 25 resignations, and I'm sorry.
Yes, so that's data. We start collecting data in February, so
Yeah.
it's February to May as of right now. So this was updated on 5/8, and it is basically our 25 resignations as far as our teachers. We have 5 in SPED, which is in the next column, and then you see our total. And it's not just all teachers in the 25, excuse me, but it kind of lists out our other positions that we have below in the bottom chart where it's highlighted in yellow. And it'll tell you the other positions that are included in our total of 30 resignations and retirements.
So the 25 is in the 30 number?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Just want to
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The 5 is what is broken out. That is separate.
Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on personnel? If not, we'll move to our second item on the agenda, job description revision cycle.
All right, I'm going to ask Mr. Truding to join me at the table. So this is our normal, every job description in the school system is reviewed on a cycle. We do it, review everybody's on the cycle at least once every 3 years. And so what you see in front of you today are the job descriptions that are on this cycle. Mr. Truding, what year are we in for the cycle?
This is the first year of the cycle. We finished up the cycle last year, so this is the first stage of the cycle, if you will.
So you'll see two attachments. The first one is a summary, which just kind of summarizes all the changes. And Mr. Truden, can you just explain to them, what type of changes that we may have?
Absolutely, thank you. The vast majority of these are just title changes, reporting to as we've had restructurings. That's, I would say, 90% of them. Others were maybe cleaning up language because of laws changed, or, where it would report to. Child nutrition was one, and specifically cited USD regulations and things like that to update with the new laws and so forth that go along with it. We do this on a 3-year basis to make sure that our job descriptions stay current, aren't obsolete based on changes of laws, policies, procedures, certification, et cetera.
And none of these job descriptions are new. These are all job descriptions that we currently have on our staff at this time, and none of them are resulting in any additional cost to the district. These are just part of our standard operating procedures to review job descriptions and make those updates, as Mr. Truding has stated. Any other questions?
All right, thank you.
If there are no other questions, and if there is no objection, I will adjourn the Personnel and Policy Committee meeting.
Thank you.
The Finance and Audit Committee meeting is called to order. We have approximately 10 items on the agenda tonight, so we'll be here a while. A number of those items deal with bids, so I'm assuming that at the appropriate time, the board will probably want to combine those bid items. But at this time, the first item deals with the proposed acceptance of the USDA Southwest Commodities Processing Agreement. Sorry about that.
Yes, sir. We do have quite a few items. I have the first 6. We have Ms. DeRoche here, who's our Director of Child Nutrition, who's been instrumental in the work with these items. The first item before you is the proposal acceptance for USDA Southeast Commodities. We bring these items to you yearly, and this is the time that it has come. These items are necessary for us to be able to operate and budget it accordingly if we fed every student every meal throughout the year. The RFPs and bids have taken place and evaluated, and what is before you tonight with the first item has actually decreased in budget. We're budgeting in a sense, again, as if we're feeding every child every meal. So that is how it's forecasted. I can tell you this year, up to date, we are below what we forecasted last year. Again, moving away from the CEP model, we're projecting the same. We evaluate throughout the year. This first item is approximately $842,000. Again, we have interns that come in, we do food plate studies, we order according to our needs, not just because we can with this approved budget. So this is a budget, again, that's established on the end to make sure that we are accommodating our students' needs. Any questions?
Any questions regarding? If not, let's move on.
Okay, if you like the first one, the second one is very similar. Moving on to bread and bread products. This budget has actually stayed the same, and we're again below budget right now, but we felt that that budget for bread and bread products was adequate to be able to move forward. Any questions?
Well, since I made the face, I just was looking at the names of the different bakeries, and that threw me off a little bit. No question. Carry on, sorry.
Okay, our next item deals with janitorial and paper supplies. This is for our kitchens to be able to clean their areas as they're held to a standard to make sure their kitchens are clean and operational.
Go ahead.
All right. Now we're moving on to milk and milk products. This budget actually decreased as well as we were able to look at some of the items that we were offering and made some adjustments to some of the products that we buy to make sure that we're heading in the right direction, and again, budgeted according to if we were serving every kid every meal, and they got a milk product during that meal.
Do we ever serve ice cream?
No. We can, but we don't right now.
There's no students asking for it?
Not really. I mean, we sell extras. It would be an extra sale. They really hadn't asked for that specifically, but
Don't tell my kid that. Do not.
But they know it's available?
we don't sell it right now.
I mean, if they ask.
No, sir.
We would have to go out for bid if we did it.
Right. It's not part of the bid package right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
The next item, item E and F, deals with large cafeterian items and small. Would you differentiate before you get into that bid between large and small items? There may be some ambiguity regarding that, and I want to clear that up.
So our large are usually a higher spend, more like your capital, where our small is a lower spend.
Examples.
So it's not the size of the equipment,
Yeah.
it's the cost of the equipment.
An oven would be a large. A small might be a food processor.
So then it is just about cost, not about size of the equipment.
It's about the size of the equipment. The larger the ovens, the warmers, all of the big items in your kitchen. So your kitchen will have an
More
oven,
expensive.
but your
also.
toaster is a small kitchen
Okay.
equipment. Okay? These items as well, just to bring to your attention, are on an obsolescence plan, so we were able to evaluate all of our equipment. We feel like we're in a good spot, so we've deferred some of our obsolescence plan. This plan is put in place so we're not purchasing every single item in every kitchen across the district at one time. So we took items that might have a little use on them or up in age, but don't have a big maintenance track record, that we felt like we can extend the life of those pieces of equipment.
No questions on that. Want to go on to item G?
Mr. Gerald.
Thank y'all.
She's like, I'm done, didn't even know it. I just bought a dishwasher at the same time. Hey, Mr. George.
John Rahm he doesn't deal with dishes, he deals with janitors.
Good evening. Obviously, we have Mr. Dunmiles here, our textbook distribution warehouse coordinator. His department is instrumental in putting together this janitorial proposal that we bring forward to you I say every year. It's a cycle. It's typically a one-year contract with a two-year renewal. I'll let Mr. Dunmiles describe kind of the process and what we're going out for.
And this is just like a normal process from, like you said, Mr. Ron said, for 1 or 2 years. So far, this year to date from March 31st, that we only spent like $380,000 toward this bid. We're just going out for this, just for a request for bid for the bid process of this year.
So kind of similar to some of the child nutrition ones, it's basically a line item bid that we put out. It can be awarded to multiple vendors. It doesn't mean we're going to purchase every one of those items in a certain quantity. It just gives us the ability to do that over the time period. And by kind of bundling these things together, we found over the years that we get better quotations on prices. So.
Any question?
Okay.
What's your budget for this year?
So $510,000.
Okay, is that higher or lower than last year?
It's a little lower this year.
A little bit lower.
And then once again, we may or may not spend that. We hope that to be the cap, but kind of from traditional trend data, we did look at what was spent, and it's probably a good time to mention that when we talk about janitorial supplies, we've taken a deep dive into that budget and line item by school. What we're starting to do now is have meetings to where we review the school purchases throughout the year, monitor them, have meetings where we're comparing like-sized schools with similar populations, similar square footage, and if we see anomalies in that or a higher trend at a school that seems out of step with that, we're going to meet with those schools. We've actually had 2 meetings today and 1 previously, so we're taking a hard line look at that budget and making sure things are spent in an efficient manner.
Okay. Any, got no questions on that. We'll go on to H, that is the mentor and referral stipend revisions. Ms. Brown?
I'm back. All right. So the item in front of you this evening is a proposal, excuse me, let me get to my sheet, is a proposal to revise the mentor and referral stipends. This is a reduction, just so you know, this is not an ask for anything, but our team met and we have been looking at our stipends and our current programs that we have, and in an effort to maximize our human resources, our staff development coordinators and our school sites, and to develop a different model very similar to our high schools, we do feel like it is appropriate to reduce those stipends. And so you see here in the first column, the first section is mentor stipends. I do want to say that mentoring is a huge part of our development of our teachers and our onboarding. So it is critical to make sure that we are developing our teachers, new teachers, teachers that are new to our district, but we also want to make sure that we are providing that support to retain them, because when we provide them support, our retention rates are high, and our retention rates are high today. And I think that is because of this work that has been done. So I just want you all to hear that and know that. But we do feel like we can reduce those stipends, and so you will see the experienced teachers new to our district, reducing from the mentors that mentor these teachers from $2,400 to a $750 max. And we do that by hour. So just so your knowledge, someone may not reach all 18.75 hours. They may only mentor them for 10 hours, but that's their maximum amount. For our new teachers, our brand new teachers that come to us, we do 37.5 hours. It was $2,400. We are proposing to be a $1,500 max. And again, they may not exceed the 37.5. They won't exceed it, but they may not reach that as well. And then we have our alternative certification teachers. And so that max is $3,000. They do require, they are on a PL, there are requirements by the state, so we want to make sure that we are getting them across that goal line to become a certified teacher. And so that's why you see that's a little bit higher, and then the number, so $40 an hour with a max of $3,000. So we do feel like that it's aligned with our district onboarding, because we've been doing a lot of work there, our development and our retention priorities, and we still feel like we can certainly achieve that and continue to maintain these programs even at a reduced rate. So any questions regarding mentor stipends before I switch to the next topic?
So, Ms. Brown, I'm assuming that our staff development coordinators will be vital to this process. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am. This is very similar to our high schools right now. They are already, our 2 high schools have had staff development coordinators, and they do play a key role in mentoring and keeping their finger on the pulse and the development of our teachers, and that is one of their roles. So yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next section, mentor trainers. So the state required back in 2018, I believe, that all mentors had to be certified. But even before this requirement, our district was really a leader in developing, mentors for our to mentor our teachers and the development of that program. And so as it was evolving and getting off the ground, we added mentor trainers, a teacher getting a stipend to do this additional work. That program has evolved. We have probably close to 100, if not a little over that, of mentors in our district, some at each site, so they can fulfill these roles when we hire a new teacher into their building, or we hire a new teacher to the district, or we have an alt cert. We want someone on that campus, and so it was for the past several years, we've worked really hard to make sure we had a number of mentors certified in order to do this work, because we know it's important work. Today, we do feel like we're in a position, we have a large number of mentors, and that work looks different today. And we feel like it's evolved so much that we can eliminate this stipend because we are ready to carry that load. There is also a program through APEL, which is a vendor that it will cost approximately $574 per person for anyone new that wants to become mentor certified. So we have a pathway for them to do that without having a trainer, to the tune of $8,000 stipend. And we have also through the state, they can go through the LER training to become certified. So there's 2 other pathways for anybody new. We have someone that's about to embark on the LER pathway in order to become a certified mentor so they can participate in this work. So we have pathways, we've covered our bases there. So if the board approves to eliminate this stipend, then we're ready to take on that work and provide those other pathways at a much lower cost to the district. Any questions before I move on to the third?
Couple questions. Are there any grant opportunities for these areas?
I'm not familiar with a grant opportunity, but Mr. Suffer and I can look into that and follow up and provide some additional information about that. If there are grant funds out there, we will certainly take advantage of that. But right now, the LER is a free option. We don't pay for the LER route, and then the APEL is $574 per person.
Okay. And what is the anticipated savings from these revisions? Do you have an idea what that might be?
For mentor trainers, it's $16,000 because we have 2 mentor trainers right now. And then for the mentor stipends, based on where we are right now, let me just check my notes because I want to be able to give you. We are budgeting for this fiscal year for mentor stipends, $65,000 for these 3 categories. And we've just estimated 20 experienced teachers that may come to the district. And we may not reach that amount, but we're trying to forecast out what would we spend and what have we spent. 20 new teachers at the $1,500, so 20 for $750, 20 mentors at the $1,500 rate, and 10 with the PLs. We only have 1 teacher right now that could potentially need a mentor next year. So we have 9 slots, if you will, that are still available that we may never expend that money on. But we just wanted to be responsible in projecting those numbers out. But it would be approximately $65,000 that we're budgeting, but we may not spend that amount of money.
For FY27, right?
Yes, sir. And the last category is referral stipends. And we have one for a regular ed teacher, and you see there, it's $500. We're proposing to eliminate that. And let me explain why we would want to eliminate that. We are very focused, and we've heard the board at previous meetings, and we are in this work, so we agree that we want to focus our efforts on our hard-to-fill critical positions. So bus operators, sped teachers, those are our 2 biggest needs. We would reevaluate this every year and bring to you what is our need? What do we need referrals in, if we need any? It could change. Sometimes in high schools, it may be science, it may be math. There may be a time when it's hard for us to fill those spots. Then we would come to you with a plan for that. But for our FY27, we want to focus our efforts on sped teachers and on bus operators, because those we're filling and sometimes can be hard to fill. And so we are proposing to eliminate the regular education teacher referral for FY27, and then we would maintain with no change for the sped teacher and maintain no change for the bus operator.
Any questions or concerns regarding that? Go ahead.
Question. I do have a question. I guess when you say it and I think about it and we talk about savings, are there actual people attached to this that are not going to make a certain amount in this stipend that they are used to making as a mentor teacher?
Yes, there will be people that are mentors that will have a reduced earning for next year as a result. If they were earning 2,400, it will be 750 max. They
Communicated this?
no, because
It has not been communicated because it has not passed. I just want to remember that this affects teachers.
And my only comment to that is when we do communicate it, and if it is approved and we are able to communicate that, we will share the new structure and model so they don't feel like they're being asked to do more work with less.
So they will have a lot less work to do because
We're finding that balance, and that's the evolution of this whole program, is that we do feel like we're going to maximize the human resources between HR, working in collaboration with CNI, working with school leadership, and working with those staff development coordinators. So it's going to be a shared model, whereas it was really always schools are involved, but it was more HR and the mentor, but most of the work on the mentor. And so we are going, and the teacher is involved in this work, obviously, because we're mentoring them. But, we will make sure that we communicate that so they understand that, and we will offer to answer any questions that they may have as a result of that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Brown, did you guys look at maybe an attrition model for implementing that program as opposed to just a sudden,
500 to 750 is a big jump.
loss of pay on the part of individuals? And how many individuals are we talking about that would be affected by the reduction?
That's a great question, Mr. Smith, and I don't have those exact numbers of how many are actually, because it does change. This year, we have 131, okay, so maybe I can answer, 131 mentors because of the number of people hired last summer. So 131 people are being mentored right now by mentors. So right now, 131. Next year, we have 19 people identified that will need a mentor. So that kind of gives you an idea. It changes from year to year. It's based on how many people we hire in each of these categories who would be affected. Of the 131, how many of them will be in the same school buildings to service the 19 teachers? I can certainly provide an update for that information.
Yeah, not only the numbers, but what would be the total reductions, savings to the board as a result of the reductions? I think that if we look at maybe another way of doing that, it would be less impactful on individuals. Not only less impactful, but also I think that there are some morale issues and other kinds of things that would be associated with individuals taking and that's a deep cut to people at the bottom of the pay scale already. So I guess my recommendation would be that we look at maybe an attrition model where we would say, okay, based on where we are, we'd have so many people retiring or going out, or however we want to look at that, and then we won't hire another individual at that same level. They would come in under the new formula, if we would look at it from that perspective.
Yes, sir, we can certainly look at that, but I just want to clarify one understanding, making sure that we're on the same page. The mentors are usually veteran seasoned teachers that are receiving these stipends. So they can mentor our brand new teachers. And so they're not at the bottom of the pay scale necessarily. I'm not going to say we don't have some 4-year teachers that are mentors, that we certainly may. But should be our experienced veteran teachers that are receiving the stipends, and I'm happy to still do that work that you just asked. I just wanted to clarify that for you so you understood that it's not our lowest paying teachers that are receiving some of these mentor stipends. It should be our experienced teachers that we want them to kind of take those teachers under their wing and show them the ropes, if you will.
Right.
Well, are you done with
I'm
your
done.
questions? Okay, so I guess the reason why I'm asking, this is something that I'm not familiar with. I don't have an understanding of necessarily this process or what this looks like. Is this something where a mentor teacher has been doing this for the last 7 years, and then now all of a sudden this year they went from 2,400 to 750?
Right.
That's a longer conversation than just, yes, do that. I don't want to be a part of that. But if it is something that is less like that and more like each year you get to sign up to add your name to this list of being a mentor, but this year it will look a little different, then that's a different conversation. So can we have a longer conversation about this so that I can really understand? I know that you called me, I know that you talked to me about this, but in just that moment where it was like the connection of a person that is expecting 2,400 and then this year they would get 750.
Yes, that is correct. And so we can certainly.
That's a different conversation for me.
But what we gotta understand though, the model is gonna look different now. So what a mentor.
Because I thought it just changed the max number that they could not.
Right, but I'm just saying like the mentor, and look, I truly believe that too, but because of the model that we're now gonna implement, the work is not gonna be so much on the mentor anymore as it has been in the past. It will now be staff coordinator, the curriculum instruction specialist, all those people now will support that new teacher instead of just that one mentor.
Which that sounds great, and I love the idea of that, but like Mr. John said, if there's a possibility to be able to do it in a way that isn't just an immediate, you understand?
Yeah.
Okay.
The model could look a bunch of different ways. And, you know, I'm not trying to tell you how to make the model, but you could have a model that says individuals who have been in the position for 3 years, individuals who, you know, have some kind of a graduated scale. Rather than just, that's a hefty cut.
Yeah, because I'm all for teachers not having more on their plate.
Yeah, right.
But then if they want more on their plate because they need more on their plate to earn these stipends, then anyway, I'll be done asking questions.
Also think that, you know, those positions, right, this was the first year of using them and utilizing them, as we've developed that program, those staff development coordinators, that's part of their primary responsibility. So you don't want to be compensating one for the sake of not the other, just so that they can have a stipend. Because really it's about the work. Totally understanding, you know, the stipends that people depend on, but at the same time, the work itself is compensated because of that person.
Which is, I guess, where my misunderstanding of it may be, which is why I want to completely understand. And in my mind, I was thinking we're going to have a max cap of you can mentor this many hours, but this is as many as you can do. Whereas if I don't know the number of how many people are reaching the max cap, then I can't determine if that max cap is, you know what I'm saying? Okay. Thank you.
I will pull some data. Yes, no,
Thank you.
I appreciate your questions, believe me.
Okay. So you'll come back to us with that information.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right. All right, that brings us to the item regarding FY '27 budget. Mr. Neighbors?
Can go ahead and get started. What you have before you, board, is our preliminary proposed interim budget. So this is, you know, what we have thus far and what we've been able to validate through eyes and wrapper as far as where our financial standing was, taking into account assumptions, which Mr. Neighbors will go through. But you do have a physical copy with you, so I believe Mr. Neighbors will take us through the broad overview of the budget and then gradually get to a very refined, more micro level.
And I'm sorry, real quick, Superintendent, if you wouldn't mind, please just clarify that for the record, we will not be having a public hearing on Tuesday, June 9th.
That's correct. If we have time, it was discussed, we'll move that particular, board meeting to another date of the board's choosing, once you're able to gather more information after reviewing the budget today.
Thank you, Dr. Orling. Again, this is just a proposed discussion to kind of go through the numbers I prepared, the estimates and calculations I've put together for you, just at a very high level. And if you want to get into some of the deeper discussion, obviously I can answer any questions you all may have. Just as you may be aware, this is the interim budget report prepared and proposed for 26-27 in draft form. I'm not going to go through every single page. I'm going to go through some high-level things. Feel free to stop if you have questions. Just, again, let me know. The table of contents opens up, kind of laying out the roadmap of where these accounts and the structures happen through the course of the year. After that will eventually be the certificate. Once we fully adopt, there's a certificate that has to be signed by various board members, and including myself. Where I want to start your focus is actually on the message, which begins on page II through VI. It's the message or the transmittal letter that really talks at a high level of some of the expectations and some of the calculations and things that went into the accumulation of this budget. As you can see, we are required by state law to prepare a budget for the general fund and the special revenue funds every year. We also present various information regarding the debt service, capital projects, and even the lunch fund for your review. Obviously, this budget has been prepared in accordance with the following objectives, such as the long-range strategic action plan and goals, as well as a priority given to instructional expenditures. It is our goal to, again, try to provide some careful stewardship of those resources and make sure that we are meeting our 70% allocation to instructional expenditures. And we have met that goal in this proposed budget. Going through the general fund discussion, again, this kind of talks a little bit about where we're expected to start in terms of revenue numbers. You can see our initial estimate for fiscal 27 revenues are expected to have a small decrease by about 3.9 million, primarily due to ad valorem taking a small dip, but sales tax revenues increasing by approximately 1 million. The ad valorem change is basically due to a calculation or the property values in the district as things are assessed for this next year. We feel, based on discussions with various sources, that there will be a small dip in terms of collections for this next year.
Are you basing that on what the millage rates are now?
Yes, sir. These are all based on the current assessed levied millage rates. Again, sales tax are right now proposed to increase by a very moderate margin. Again, that's that $1 million change. With the various sales tax projects and things, we try not to overly project into next year's calculations, as those numbers are not fully manifesting as to speak. State funding is actually going to decrease by about 3.2 million because the removal or the non-reoccurring one-time payment that happened last year. They were able to support us with 3.2 million, which then was paid in as a part of the one-time payments that were paid in October. And then last but not least, total revenues for the general fund are expected to decrease from about 214.6 to about 210.7. And you'll see more detail of these figures as we get deeper into the budget. Okay, moving on to onto page III. And Mr. Sefrin, I think this kind of moves into your question. This next page talks about the actual millage rates that have been levied for this past year, including the maximums that were proposed, as well as the expiration dates of those millages. Any questions on this page before I move forward? Okay, moving on to page IV, or page 4. This is also a graph of sales tax collections, kind of tracking a history of where we've been in terms of the history of the sales tax collections in the parish and how we've trended to a degree higher up in the past 10 to 15 years. And you can kind of see that we are continuing to propose, again, a very small and moderate increase for this next cycle. In the middle of page 4, it talks about our proposed expenditures for this next year. The good news is we were able to try to, at least in the general fund, decrease our expenditures via a handful of efforts. Right now, our proposal is decreasing from about 234.9 in the revised budget from 26 to about 233.7. This is primarily due to a net change in personnel costs due to those changes in state funding that we talked about and the non-recurring one-time payments that were happening in the 26 year, the total of about 8.6 million in changes. and then also offset by an overall increase in health insurance by about 11.1, health insurance and other benefits. The remaining expenditures have been budgeted to decrease by a net of about 3.7 million total for all other categories, things that we, in some ways, were under our control. Things that like contractual expenses, payment for various utilities and things of that nature. Okay. Special revenues is our next category of collections and monies. That's where, that's our grants and funds of that nature, where money out is usually reimbursed by money coming back in. Historically speaking, we try to budget for those at a net break-even basis. Moving on to page 5, you can move to the debt service at the top of the page. That talks about the two types of debt service collections we have. Both of them are the bond millages, which are collected through ad valorem, as well as a portion of sales tax, which also helps pay off some of the existing bond obligations, both principal and interest. Those are budgeted about 10.9 million collected versus about 9.9 payments of principal and interest going out. Next on the list is capital projects monies. Again, this is supported by the construction millage of collecting about 10.4 on an annual basis, the 4.16 mil that was levied. Expenditures in the capital projects funds are budgeted to be about 30.6 right now for the fiscal year 27. This is going to be, in order to stabilize those past deficits, we're going to transfer about 23 million to cover some of those shortages, as well as, stabilizing the balance in those funds. As you can see, there are 2 large construction projects going forward based on the state mandated public bids that we went through this past fall. We are legally obligated to continue that construction. Out of that 30.6, there is about 15 million of expenditures designated to those 2 projects.
That's the middle school project?
Middle school and elementary school, yes, sir.
The enclosing and all the elementary schools.
Last but not least, on the page V or 5 is the lunch fund discussion. This is a matter of the designated monies for the lunch fund in terms of operations, which is supported not only by school meal sales, but also federal reimbursements. As you can see, they've budgeted about 6.1 million in revenues, offset by about 8.9 million in expenses. And again, we'll see more detail of what those expenses consist of as we get through it a little bit deeper. But that shortage is usually offset by a transfer from the general fund as well to the tune of about $2 million. The change and the variation from the fiscal year 26 is primarily due to the elimination of the CEP provision or community eligibility provision as we start moving more from a reimbursement or a federally reimbursement model to more of the charge model, which I think Mr. Rogers and Mr. Roche talked about earlier. Okay. Last but not least in the message is talking about the local economic factors. And again, this basically just covers at a very high level our reliance or lack of reliance on various industrial projects in the parish and the stability and or the movement that happens and the school board's historical benefit from those types of projects. While we are very conservative in our estimates, we want to make sure that we are providing some background and some clarity about how those can affect or could affect in the future the ability of the school board to collect certain various ad valorems and sales tax. So we put some messaging here to cover that type of basis. And last but not least is discussion of the narrative recap, which is basically this entire budget is adopted with a conservative method, which is a conservative approach, which is obviously trying to downplay the revenues and kind of be very optimistic but realistic about your revenues, while also making sure that your expenditures are, in so many words, trying to capture as many as you can, and so that you can forecast your worst case results, if you would. Okay. Excuse me. Questions before we move into the numbers? All right, moving on to page 1. This is, again, the side-by-side layout of all of the expected changes or the expected monies in and monies out for the various 5 sources over the course of this next fiscal. You can see that the types that we talked about: general fund, special revenue, debt service, capital projects, and lunch fund, as well as the additional columnar format to the right that kind of gives you your grand totals, not only for the current year in terms of your interim, but also your most previous revised budget to date as well. And right now you can kind of see where we're at in terms of the general fund projections, the special revenue projections breaking even, the debt service with a little bit of surplus, and the capital projects with the deficit, and the lunch fund with a deficit as well, at least in the current year operations. Again, this high level detail gets a lot more detailed as we go forward. Okay, questions about the summary before we move forward? Excellent, thank you. All right, moving into detail about the general fund. This again is some more information specifically about where the monies come in and where the monies are directed to go out. This first page on page 4 really covers some high-level detail about the revenues coming in by source, local, state, and federal, as well as your expenditures in terms of instructional, support, and then your other opportunities such as food service or community services. And this, as you can see, again, where these numbers will lay out in terms of this next fiscal year. This, again, a slightly revised presentation for you this year also has some additional columns for you in terms of interim budget versus the most recent revised budget and a calculation in terms of the change for this current proposal. But it also has some actual data for you presented as of March 31st, the most recent closed out financial information, just so that you kind of have an understanding of where we are for the current fiscal year. And then that last column is a comparative in terms of what is remaining against the revised budget. This columnar format will happen through the rest of the report, just for informational purposes, so that we can kind of see it walked side by side. Okay. Questions on this, the high-level summary before we keep moving? All right. All right. Page 5 gets into a little bit more detail in terms of the types of expenditures. Types of expenditures meaning regular, special ed, other instructional, and career and tech in terms of your instructionals. And then it also gets into more detail in terms of the support. Things like pupil support, staff support, general administration, et cetera. Those are all detailed, again, in more detailed subtotals for you here. And again, it continues to get more detailed the further back you go in the book. So this is the detailed expenditure side. And then the last page, and last but not least from general fund, is the detailed on page 6. This is from the revenue side. This really breaks it down in terms of items such as the constitutional tax, your ad valorums, your maintenance operations tax, sales tax, things like the LaFawn Center, before and after care. All of these are really broken out in terms of your local revenues at the top, your state sources in the middle, and then your federal sources at the bottom. As you can kind of see some of those numbers we would talk about in the message, you can see the decrease that are projected in the ad valorem, you can see the increase in the sales tax, and you can kind of see the fluctuations in some of the other categories. I also want to highlight down in the state sources, you can see where that 3.7 net in state source number, that's where that number came from in terms of like the one-time payment not reoccurring this next year. Total revenue, like I said, was about 3.9 million short in projections from compared to fiscal year 26. Okay, questions on the general fund before we get into more details?
Thank you for the way you set up the pages. I appreciate it.
All right, pages 8 through 11 really start getting into the middle level of detail. This is, again, based on the general fund. This really starts taking those expenditure categories you saw on the front and breaking it down into what we call by function. By function meaning salaries, benefits, purchase professional services, professional technical, material supplies, equipment, various subcategories that we use in terms of our ledger and tracking to really classify these based on how they're actually being spent. All of these numbers are also further detailed, again, as we go deeper into the book. Same columnar format that we talked about in terms of your comparisons as well. It starts on page 8. Okay. Any questions before I move forward into the...
Not yet.
That's fine. They will come later. Yes, ma'am. All right. So again, the rest of the next couple pages, again, go into the detail of those categories we mentioned in the front: instructional, special ed, other instructional, CT&E, and then you get into the pupil support type services, your other support, pupil support, instructional support, general administration, school administration. All these continues on to page 10, which is business services, plant services, transportation. That's your transportation buses on page 10, as well as things like central services, which is HR, ITS, and public information. Last but not least, on the back of page 11 is basically the overall summary. This basically, again, had some additional information presented to you so you could have some overall collectives, taking all those categories and putting them in a good summarized format down at the bottom if you wanted to kind of accumulate it by category. And that totals back at 233,740. All right, moving into special revenue. Again, these are where we started going into more of our grant monies, federal, state, and local. The first page has, again, a descriptor, kind of high level of what those grant funds are. The summary page on page 13 really gives you a high level in terms of where those monies come from, insurance recoveries, corporate grants restricted from the state, restricted from the federal government, et cetera. That's where you get your total revenues, and then we also allocate those out to the various special programs, such as regular special ed, pupil support, et cetera. So you can kind of see, by and large, those are budgeted to be money in and money out. And you can also see your actuals to date to the right as well. From there, it continues into the various subcategories of grants: ESSA, Head Start, your corporate, federal, and state grants, and hurricane recovery, and then your IDEA are on the next few pages.
Adam, I had a quick question, going back to page 10.
Sure.
The salaries with regards to business services essentially remain flat.
Yep.
Employee benefits went up 2.3 million.
I'm going to be taking a closer look at that as we move forward. There was a new category added this year in terms of some benefits. I'm going to make sure that's classified correctly. It was for some claims with regards to one of our insurance policies. I'm going to make sure it's classified in the right bucket correctly. Some of that was the health insurance, but I know what the bigger number that is, the 2 million. And we'll fix that going forward. Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
All right, that was the special revenue recap in terms of your high level. A lot of these special revenues numbers, just to give you a heads up, are coordinating with our various programs such as federal programs and our special ed to make sure that what is being submitted to the state is also matching our internal budgets as well. Okay, moving on to page 20, 23, 22. This moves into our debt services. This is, again, what we talked about in terms of the two funds that we use for managing our debt instruments. One of them, sinking fund number 1, is funded through our 3 bond millages that are out and approved. That's the ad valorem collections. And then the sinking fund number 3 is the one funded by our sales tax collections. And on page 20, again, you can see a very high-level summary, kind of accumulating the various types, and then the payments out in terms of the bond interest, bonds principal, et cetera. The only variation there is just the ad valorem tends to be slightly above our payment structure, which is a good problem to have. So page 20 is the summary. Page 21 is when you get into the detail of sinking fund number 1. Again, those the millage-related collections. And then page 22 is the sales tax bond-related collection. Questions about debt service before we keep moving? These are based on the current obligations, just for the record. Okay, moving into pages 23 through 26, these are the capital projects funds. Again, these are funded by not only the general fund in terms of some of the operations, but also capital projects number 1 was the original bond, as well as some of the ad valorem money. The summary page is on page 24. You can see the 10.4 revenue coming in from the ad valorem millages, and the 30.6 million estimated to go out for this next year. And you can see on that middle line item where it says other capital, that's that 15.6 that we were talking about at the beginning. The two large projects. Okay. And again, onto page 25 and 26, again, you can get into the detail of the construction fund, which is the millage related and general fund supported, as well as page 26, which is the remainder of those bond project monies that are beginning to wrap up from the 2024 issuance. Projects. So far. Okay. Moving on to the last fund, but certainly not the least fund, is the lunch fund budget. As you can see, again, this is just a one-page summary because it's just the one type of fund. You can kind of see the changes and variations from last year's proposed or revised to this year's proposed. The shift between federally supported versus what we refer to as food service income, which is the pay-for-meal service. So that's where you can see the shift in terms of as we're starting to recharge and collect for those things. You can see that we have proposed an increase in those types of collections. Total revenue of 6.2. And then total expenditures of 8.9, and then you can see the transfer in to cover that shortfall. Okay. That's the last of the summary level pages. Once you get past that, you get into page 30 through 46. That's the real detail where you really start drilling in. So if that general fund detail was kind of the middle level of detail, this last section is where you really get into the by category and by object. And all of these totals, as you go through the pages, reconcile back to that middle section, which then reconciles to the front summary as well.
Questions or concerns regarding the interim budget report?
If I could just say to the board, obviously, we will end, this proposed interim budget will end next year under a deficit relative to our general fund. That's what we're projecting. Therefore, administration plans to bring options to the board for the board to consider at our June board retreat, including different options for the board to consider relative to trying to make up the gap of where we will fall short with this next interim budget. Working directly with our bond attorney, Foley and Judell, Mr. Jason Akers, as well as other legal counsel internally as well as externally, to make sure we provide a wide range of options for the board to consider moving forward. In the meantime, any positions we are currently filling, we are pausing filling those positions until very similar to what that model that Mr. Smith was kind of alluding to during Ms. Brown's presentation, is truly asking ourselves if we can not fill the position and fill it with other means and other compensation at a more cost-efficient or effective approach from that standpoint. But we do plan to bring back to the board on June 2nd options for the board to consider to move forward.
What is the target date, Adam, for that the board has to approve the budget?
Legally, the latest the board has to approve the budget is September 15th.
September 15th? Okay.
We would like to have that done before then.
Okay, so we have a number of meetings scheduled prior to September 15th to go into detail regarding the budget. And at that time, any questions that you have not gotten to ask already, we'll take those questions up at that time. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask the superintendent with regards to options on how to close this gap, that what you bring back to the board, every option is on the table.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
How much time do we have to try to get an item on the retreat agenda?
So currently that agenda, that day is set for June 2nd. We do have the option if we need to go over, but you can still send me any agenda item you want, Ms. Ellis. I'll be happy to put it on. We're getting, obviously, especially with the long-range strategic action plan, we may need to consider more than just the one day and come back maybe for a half day the next, just based on the number of items as well as the long-range strategic action plan, providing that update, and now options for this, budget shortfall. So, but I'll certainly talk to you, Ms. Ellis, if you want to, or send it to me, or you can tell me now.
It's, I'd like to look at the rental fees for the Performing Arts Center.
Yes, sir. We'll bring that back.
Any member of the committee? No. Any questions? If there are no questions at this time, that brings us to our final item, which is the accounts payable. That item will be taken up at the board meeting. If there are no further questions, we stand adjourned.
At this time, the legislative committee is being called to order. If you will also take a minute to look to see that we do have an attachment, an update by Mr. Lenny. So if everyone can get to that spot. Thank you, Ms. McMillan.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. Ms. Hegel will go ahead and pull up the conference call with Mr. Kapowski, who is in Baton Rouge. Final adjournment for the session has to be no later than by June 1st in the evening. So there's going to be a lot of movement coming up. Magnolia Strategic Consultants does expect a lot of floor action coming up with those bills as they go ahead and go through the process. 3 bills to note that we were all in support, well, that the school system was looking at that could possibly provide favorable impacts for St. Charles Parish Public Schools that have been sent to the governor for signing. We've got House Bill 232, which moves employment certificates for minors to online, whereas right now they need to come in person to a school or the school board office to get those employment certificates for minors. With this bill would allow, with parental consent, for that to be done online and sent directly to the employer. Another one is Senate Bill 1. That is the bill that says an electronic vote would also meet the qualifications for open meetings law, whereas right now you have to do a voice vote in addition to electronic vote. So this bill has been approved by both House and Senate and has been sent to the governor for signing there. And then additionally, Senate Bill 162, which is also modern day revisions to the Louisiana Workers' Compensation Fee Schedule that has not been adjusted in quite a while. Let me see, I'm checking in with Mr. Kapowski. So as I shared with you earlier, Mr. Kapowski did go ahead and submit a PDF document that is included in Assembly, just giving an overview of where they are with the session up to this point. Of course, for our June board meeting would be a final look at the session, since at that time session would be over. A couple of points that he did note on his PDF is they're looking at, as I said earlier, as committee deadlines are going to approach coming up, that Magnolia anticipates increased floor action. They're specifically going to be monitoring HB 342, which deals with the burden of proof in special education placement, that would switch the burden of proof to the school system. And then again,
can y'all hear me?
Hello, sir. And then again, Senate Bill 65, which I spoke at the last meeting, deals with the conversion of pre-existing schools to charter schools and what is the threshold for that. So Mr. Kapowski, can you hear us?
I can. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Well, you got me standing outside the Pentagon up at the Capitol. So all good. So yeah, I couldn't really pick up on what you just said, but I think we've had a good session so far. I don't have my list with the bill actually number, but as far as authors go and context, of course, I'm aware of that. I mean, I can speak to that. What I'd like to talk about is House Bill 352, also the Stewart-Cathy bill, the Candace Noel House bill. I think we've had a number of wins. We're very fortunate that in the Senate we have a very understanding, engaged committee that provides a good backstop to bills that we find contentious or impractical to implement. We have found that recently with House Bill 352 by Representative Mack from the Tangipahoa Livingston area, which was a behavioral health specialist bill that Mindy Van Hoven has been, from your staff, has been really, really, really helpful on providing context and detail to the point where, when we started this session, I did not know what IEP stood for. Now I do. I know a lot about IEPs, but we've been very, very lucky to get a lot of bills that we thought were going to be negative in the sense, not necessarily from a financial perspective, but a lot of times the intrusiveness of the intimacy of the classroom. We've we've had a good session because of a lot of good help from staff, from Regina, from Ken. Darnisha's been incredible, and Mindy has been wonderful, very engaging, very helpful. We've had I think we've had a very, very good session. We're not done. We're done on the first. On that 352, which the behavioral health specialist bill, which would have, I want to say, change the context in which private outside therapists could have access to classrooms. I think, have that bill in a posture right now. It was actually given, I don't want to say given up on, but I think both sides, from school board association and superintendents, found that they could not come to terms on that bill. We with Mindy's help, we've been able to change that narrative, get a lot of bad language out of that bill that would have been very intrusive into the classroom. Outside of that, the Candace Noel, the battery on a teacher and subsequent action that would happen with the student that did that. That language has been, I think, worked out. The parish has been very engaged with what's going on at the Capitol. I did want to mention that the Gator bill, obviously last year there was approximately about 40 million that was allocated in the governor's budget. I do not believe that the remaining 50 to 60 million is going to go into that program when the budget bill starts getting debated on the Senate side. The Senate president has already said that the Revenue Estimating Committee has come back. There isn't the money for it. I think that is going to fade due to budget constraints, and it's probably an out for the governor that he can say, well, there wasn't enough money, we couldn't do it. But I think that the Gator program continues at about $40 million. But been a very good success. I think a pretty good K through 12 education session. It's been pretty good. So if anybody has any questions, please shoot.
Sounds like there's no questions for you, Mr. Kapowski. Thank you for hopping on and being available to answer any questions that they would have, and also to provide an overview of what's been going on.
Yeah, thank y'all. Thank y'all. No, if there's any questions or you want to talk, everyone has my cell number. Please feel free to give me a shout. If I can't talk, I will call you back as soon as I can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lenny.
Hey, thanks everybody. Y'all have a good evening.
Remember, this is only for committee meeting only.
I have a question. It's not current legislation per se, but what happens with the inventory tax since it fell on a Saturday? Is the plan to come back at some point for approval, or do you know with the governor and?
So, my understanding is the problem is that the statute side was the credit, right? So the credit was removed, I believe, July 1st of this year for C corps. The credit is still available for pass-throughs, so such as like an LLC, and that's defined. That pass-through, for those of you who don't know, is defined by the IRS. But that could go away at any point. So there's no edit that anybody, a parish or a governing body, can do to inventory tax. You can't. You can't do an exemption, you can't reduce, you can't really do anything with it. So dead in the water, I guess you say.
So it stays pretty much status quo.
Yeah, I mean, it's in the Constitution, so it's gonna have to be, it has to be amended, for it to come back. Yeah.
Okay,
Move to adjourn?
yes, move to adjourn.
Can I get a motion to move into executive committee? And I'll just say, we will stay here for executive committee because this has now been moved to a Teams meeting. An executive session, sorry, executive session.
Second.
I move that we go to executive session regarding Louisiana Revised Statute 42:1617 to discuss legal items listed here such as East Jefferson Hospital, Pam Leslie, and internal controls investigative reporting update.
Got a motion by Mr. Gregson and a second by Ms. Weber to move into executive session. All in favor? Yeah. We are in executive session. Okay.
Mr. President, I move we get out of executive session.
Second.
I've got a motion by Mr. Gregson, a second by Ms. Boudreau. We are out of executive session.
And I
Next,
would like-
next
oh,
up
consent
is
agenda.
consent agenda items. I'd like to consent with y'all's approval, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A through G.
Bid acceptance, personnel.
That's fair. 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A through G.
Move to adjourn.
That item for the
We are adjourned.